And the regulatory requirements for data.
And before I'm going to even talk about the data and regulatory requirements, two very, very, very important things that I think everyone needs to have a very good idea about left of the event. And one is, what is a breach versus what is an incident versus what's an event, okay? And I say that because getting that wrong is going to have terrible downstream effects for you down the road. For example, if you truly just had an incident that was contained with your organization, but it didn't amount to a breach, and you report it as a breach, contractually, you're likely going to have to report to all of your customer base, and that's going to be a very unpleasant discussion. Moreover, you may have to share incident reports with your base, which is very unpleasant. And you can tell unpleasantness is part of the lawyer job, and it goes downhill from there. So very important to have that distinction, because I can tell you when you do your SOC 2s down the road, they're going to ask you, did you have any breaches? And if you don't have a good idea of an incident versus a breach, you're going to be articulating things that, one, aren't true, and two, are actually putting you in a bad position. It's going to be the scarlet letter for you from that point forward. Secondly, having a very good idea of where your personal or controlled data is within your organization, and making sure that not only do you check that, but have an ability to confirm it either electronically or some other means to make sure that you have a very good idea where the data is, what the data is, and what the regulatory requirements are as a consequence if you lose control of it. Keep in mind that simply, in many cases, having a bad guy look at the data, just looking at the data, for example, the New York Shield Act, is enough to implicate the law, which means that you'll have to notify the authorities. So in sum, knowing where your data is and assuming that there's more data than meets the eye is going to be critical to success.
So let me pause and give some examples of regulatory data.
Just about any kind of data you can imagine is going to have some regulatory aspects. So, and it's not just, for example, HIPAA-controlled data, that is to say data that's medically or healthcare related, or financial data, things that are controlled by GLBA. You're going to find that things that are controlled at a state level. So now about a dozen states have laws protecting personal information, and that can be just about anything. California is a great example. They have all kinds of things that are considered personal data. Your browsing history on the internet, that's personal data, which is impressive. Purchases that you've made, for example, on Amazon, that's personal data. So you're going to find that a lot more data is controlled than you might have thought at first.
And I just wanted to add also, if you're a global company and you have offices in Europe, then pretty much anything about a person is personal data. And there, it's not just whether or not the data has been viewed by an outside party. It can also be considered a reportable incident if you have, let's say, a ransomware attack with no exfiltration, but just the data is unavailable and you can't restore it within a timely fashion. Now you're violating rights of individuals because they can't access their data.
All right, Steve. Tell us about vendors and third-party risk and so forth.
Sure, yeah. So, hey, Steve Curtis, Chief Cyber Business Officer at Cygnus. And the framework that we recommend is plan, practice, respond, and report. So it's very similar, but I think the theme that you're getting from everybody up here is be prepared. So having that plan, but the plan really should include not just the actions you're going to take, but who's going to take those actions. So it's more than a contact list, in my opinion. It's actually assigning the actions to the people or the people to the actions. And those actions should not only be your own stakeholders within your own organization, but also all of the different supporting organizations that you work with. So that might be your outside counsel. It might be an incident response firm that you work with to investigate the technical investigator. It might be your managed service provider if you outsource some of your IT stack, or maybe you have multiple different IT outsourcers or other kinds of business outsourcing. All of those folks will be in some manner responsible for different tasks during the incident response plan. So having the plan, knowing who your response team is, it's not just your own internal team, but those outside providers, assigning the tasks to each one of those, and then running some sort of a practice. It doesn't have to be a very sophisticated activity, but actually ensuring that everybody has access to the plan, that they know how to execute the plan, they know what those tasks are, they understand what the directions are, to the point of getting to the end and realizing that the report says call Marie or something like that. That might not be sufficient. Well, Marie probably could have figured that out at the beginning if that was what she personally had as her practice. And then in the end, you're going to have to report, and that's what everybody keeps telling us. So having the data on which not only to make the report, but also you have to make decisions. And so having those decisions on which to report, whether you report, you decide to report, or you decide not to report, and being able to defend why you made the report the way you did, or you didn't report because it didn't meet a certain threshold, having that data will help you defend your decision and make the right decision at the right time.